This is not an attempt to ban TikTok. It's an attempt to make TikTok better. Tic-tac-toe, a winner.
How about Tic-Tac go to the nursing home? Hello everyone, and welcome to another quick sip on a topic that really shouldn't be a thing, but here we are talking about it. So grab a cup and sit down and let's discuss the most recent thing that is rocking the internet, the TikTok ban bill. On March 13th, 2024, the United States House of Representatives passed what has been colloquially called the TikTok ban bill. Now, this bill has rocketed through the House in what I consider to be record time, but it's also been equated with the bill that came up last year that was also called the TikTok ban bill. However, that one, I will say, was much, much worse. In 2023, the Restricting the Emergence of Security Threats That Risk Information and Communications Technology Act, aka the Restrict Act, aka we really need to come up with smaller names for these damn bills act, was pushed in through the House. This bill was designed to give the Secretary of Commerce an unbelievable amount of power when it came to approval over foreign-based tech, mainly when it came to apps. Now, this included a list of countries that are pretty much the usual suspects of American adversaries, which included North Korea, Russia, Cuba, Iran, Venezuela, and mainly China. Of course, when going around and advocating for the bill, its creators used TikTok as a prime example of why they needed it, mainly saying that communist China government can just have free reign and access to Americans' data and feed us propaganda. You know, like, we can't do that by ourselves at home, so, you know. But when you go around with a bill with the title of restrict in it, along with the word ban in it, Americans typically don't go for that. Even if the restriction had to go past government approval, namely through the president, that's still too much power for one person to have. Because ultimately, who is this rando to judge? What qualifications, if any, will the Secretary of Commerce be under to determine what app is a threat? It was way too broad and, funny enough, little restriction to keep it from being mishandled. So with that in mind, they went back to the drawing board, or rather in this case back to committee, and came back with a bill that just went through the House. Called the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, aka Restrict 2.0, aka the TikTok ban bill. It passed the House with overwhelming bipartisan support at 352 to 65. Of course, with a name like this, it was sold under the guise that foreign companies and their governments could use that technology to influence American citizens, namely through propaganda and by taking and collecting our data learned through these apps to gain information on American citizens and God knows who else. However, this bill is laser focused on TikTok and China specifically. Whereas the other bill was broad-reaching, this bill is pretty much forcing the parent company of the app, ByteDance, to divest. So in other words, sell the app to a US-based company, because we're so great with data protection over here. But it's either sell to a US company or don't operate in the US at all, which is a bum deal for ByteDance, and the government knows it. Now, I don't need to be the one to tell you that this bill is a load of distracting nonsense. Not just because we have homegrown US-based social media companies that constantly sell our data, and these same companies have data breaches and hacks and have been testifying before Congress multiple times about the content that they push, and are always the subject of multi-million-dollar class action lawsuits that result in $3 settlement checks. No, it's because US companies are not the ones making money off of American citizens. And some other things that I can't talk about on here because US-based YouTube won't push the video. But money is one facet of it. Especially now that we see multiple so-called big businessmen say that they are interested in buying the company. Although there are many more China-based apps that do have security issues and bad ethics practices that sell things to Americans, but we aren't regulating them. But, you know, I digress. But no, through the dangerous app of TikTok, China is looking at all the Asterian sleep token edits that I have saved in my favorites. Obviously collecting information on how to overthrow the government through my love for that pale white man. Now, this bill not only being a complete waste of time, but also a complete joke is probably one of the few things the American public agrees on at the moment, other than term limits. Because we know that these crypt keepers in office do not know nor care about how TikTok works, given what we saw the poor CEO of the company have to go through during those horrible, horrible hearings that he had to be sat through. Oh.
You said today, as you often say, that you live in Singapore. Of what nation are you a citizen?
Singapore.
Are you a citizen of any other nation?
No, Senator.
Have you ever applied for Chinese citizenship?
Senator, I serve my nation in Singapore.
And they don't care about our data being stolen, sold, or breached in any way, given the constant slaps on the wrist that they give Meta and Google all the time. But going back to the bill, I see a lot of people talk about that now that it's passed the House, they're talking about, well, I guess it's inevitable at this point, and they're just going to pack up from the app and head over to other Meta-owned corners of the internet. Well, not yet. It still has to pass through the Senate. Now, the Senate, while people have been voicing support for the bill in the chamber, still has some members who are not willing to vote for it in its current language or not at all. And as well, the Senate rightfully recognizes that we got more important things to deal with at the moment, so there's no rush to bump the bill up the list like the House did. Also, senators have a habit of bundling less popular bills with bills that they know are going to pass, and they try to do it in an all or nothing bid, and that's how a lot of stuff ends up falling in between the cracks and just getting voted off into oblivion. And in a move reminiscent of that Onion article about the worst person you know making a good point, of all people, the sentient piece of shit himself, Senator Rand, my neighbor punched me in the face, Paul, doesn't like the bill. He claims that it is against the First Amendment rights of American citizens, which he's right. I hate that. But to soften that blow, at least for myself, my own senator, who I know is sick and tired of hearing about me about the Earn It Act and COSA, Dick Durbin, doesn't think that the bill is constitutional. But most importantly, the majority leader of the Senate, Senator Chuck Schumer, has really been meh about pushing the whole thing through. But the main thing is to keep raising your voice. If there is one thing politicians can't stand, is when people actually pay attention to what they're doing and raise their voice about it. Before the bill even made it through the House, there was a big campaign through the people on TikTok to have people call their members of the House and say, hey, don't vote for this bill. And they got flooded with phone calls and comments and emails, and it annoyed the hell out of them. It's sad that that's what you have to do to be heard in the government nowadays, but if you can inconvenience them, you have to essentially force them to listen and pay attention to you. So I will leave you with a link that will help you find your elected representative. Now, this is a link provided by the government itself, because they tried to say that TikTok was using some kind of data mining thing to find the elected representatives' phone numbers. Baby, they were linking to the House website where you can enter your zip code and find out who your representative is. Plenty of places, including the other place that I'm going to link below called Bad Internet Bills and Fight for the Future, have that same feature on their own websites. It just links to the government sites. Like, we're not stupid. I've been doing this since high school. I know what I'm doing. But anyway, that was it for this quick sip. I hope you all have an amazing day. I will try to get this video out as soon as possible. I was trying to wait to see if I heard anything else about the bill coming up, but no dice at the moment. So yeah, this is the most update information that I have, and yeah, keep calling your elected representatives. Annoy them for the greater good for America. I'll see y'all in the next one. By the way, I tricked you all. This isn't paint water. This isn't even tea. It's coffee. I gotta get my energy up because I got an event to go to today.